Humanity had always believed in the power of peace. For centuries, they had spread across the stars, building connections with other species and forming an interstellar alliance where diplomacy and cooperation thrived. The galaxy seemed to be moving toward a golden age, where war was a distant memory, and the horrors of the past had faded into history. Human colonies were scattered across different planets, but there was no sense of fear or threat. People lived with a calm confidence, knowing that their future was secure in the hands of their leaders, who prioritized peace above all else. On the distant planet of Leora, a peaceful human colony flourished. The settlers had built a small, tight-knit community in the lush forests, surrounded by towering trees and rivers that glittered under the twin suns of Leora. Life was simple but content. The humans there had established a vibrant trade network with nearby alien civilizations, exchanging goods, knowledge, and cultural practices. Leora had become a symbol of human success, proof that peace and understanding could work in even the most distant corners of the galaxy. No one imagined that the tranquility of Leora would ever be threatened. The worst thing that might happen, they thought, was a minor dispute over resources or a misunderstanding with an alien species. But none of them could have predicted what was about to come. It began with a sudden burst of energy, an explosion so powerful it shook the planet's very core. The sky turned dark, and a strange, unfamiliar ship appeared in orbit. It wasn't like any craft the humans had seen before. It was sleek and massive, its dark metallic surface reflecting the faint light of the distant stars. The inhabitants of Leora had no time to react. By the time they recognized the danger, it was too late. A barrage of firepower rained down on the colony, obliterating buildings, roads, and communication towers in a matter of seconds. The screams of the innocent echoed through the air, but they were quickly drowned by the roar of the alien weapons. In the blink of an eye, thousands of lives were wiped out. It wasn't an invasion in the traditional sense. There were no large armies landing on the planet's surface. Instead, it was a swift, brutal attack meant to strike fear into the hearts of those who had believed themselves safe. The alien faction responsible for the attack, the Zorax, was a mysterious force with no known ties to any established galactic power. They were an enigma. No one knew where they came from or why they had attacked Leora, a peaceful colony with no history of conflict. The humans were caught completely off guard, unable to understand the motivations behind such a senseless act of violence. In the aftermath, there was confusion and grief. The survivors, many of them injured and disoriented, struggled to comprehend the scale of the destruction. The once thriving colony had been reduced to rubble, and in the midst of the devastation, the humans had no idea who was responsible or why they had targeted Leora. They had always believed that diplomacy could solve any problem, that there were no enemies they couldn't reason with. But this attack shattered their assumptions, leaving them unsure of the galaxy they had spent so long trying to understand. Humanity's leaders, the members of the Galactic Council, convened urgently to address the catastrophe. There were frantic meetings, debates, and discussions, but no answers. Who had done this? And why? The attack on Leora wasn't an isolated incident. Soon, similar reports began to surface from other parts of the galaxy. Outposts and colonies, once thought to be safe, were being struck down with terrifying efficiency. The Zorax, it seemed, were not interested in negotiations or peace. They were attacking without warning or provocation, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. For the first time in generations, fear began to spread through the hearts of humanity. There was talk of retaliation, of war, but the council was divided. Some leaders argued for an immediate response, believing that humanity needed to show strength and defend its people at all costs. Others, however, cautioned against rushing into violence. The galaxy had spent so many years working toward peace, and the idea of abandoning that path for war was difficult to accept. They had always believed that if they could understand the motivations of others, they could prevent bloodshed. But the Zorax didn't seem interested in diplomacy. They only wanted destruction. Amidst the confusion, a young, determined military leader emerged, General Elena Carter. She was not a member of the Galactic Council, but her reputation as a skilled tactician and commander had earned her respect across the galaxy. Elena had spent years training for situations like this, preparing for a time when humanity's peace would be tested. As the Council wavered between hesitation and action, Elena took matters into her own hands. She refused to let the galaxy fall into chaos without a fight. In a private meeting with the Council, Elena spoke with a fierce conviction that left no room for doubt. "We cannot stand by and let this happen," she said. "We have the strength to fight back, and we must show the galaxy that humanity will not be cowed. But we must do it with purpose, not out of blind anger. We fight not because we want to, but because we have no choice." Her words resonated with many, but not everyone agreed. Some feared the consequences of opening hostilities with such a mysterious enemy, but Elena's unwavering determination convinced them that humanity had to act. The Zorax had proven that they would stop at nothing to destroy peaceful civilizations, and Leora was just the beginning. Plans for a counterattack were swiftly put into motion. Elena knew that the key to defeating the Zorax lay not in overwhelming force, but in strategy. She began assembling a fleet of ships, each equipped with the latest technology developed by human engineers, sleek, fast, and powerful. They would strike where the Zorax least expected, using their enemies' own tactics against them. Elena's plan was bold, precise, and risky, but it was humanity's only chance to ensure their survival and protect the future of the galaxy. As the human fleet prepared for battle, the galaxy held its breath. News of the Zorax's brutal attacks had already spread like wildfire. People who had once believed in the peaceful future of the galaxy now feared that war was inevitable. The question wasn't whether humanity would fight back, but how far they were willing to go to secure peace once again. The galaxy was about to witness the birth of a new chapter in human history, one that would change everything forever. And so, as humanity readied itself for the unknown, the first steps toward a new era were taken. An era where the peaceful dreams of the past would clash with the harsh realities of the future. And all the while, one question echoed across the galaxy. Could humanity's wrath be as powerful as their pursuit of peace? The attack on Leora had left humanity in a state of shock. The brutal assault was not only a physical blow but also a psychological one. For generations, humanity had lived under the belief that peace, diplomacy, and understanding were the ways to maintain order in the galaxy. The unprovoked violence, the senseless loss of innocent lives, shattered this illusion in an instant. The quiet confidence they once had was replaced with an unsettling fear of the unknown, and the leaders of the Galactic Council were faced with an impossible decision. What should they do now? Should they respond with force, risking all-out war, or continue to pursue peace, despite the overwhelming evidence that the Zorax would never negotiate? The Council's chambers were filled with tension, the air thick with uncertainty. High-ranking diplomats and military leaders gathered in heated discussions, each arguing for their version of what humanity's next move should be. Some called for a swift military retaliation, eager to show the galaxy that humanity would not be bullied or intimidated. Others, however, argued for caution, urging the Council to take time to understand the nature of the Zorax and explore every possible diplomatic option before resorting to violence. But time was not on their side. The attack on Leora had been only the first strike, and reports from other colonies indicated that the Zorax were planning more raids. Humanity could no longer afford to wait. Amid this turmoil, a new voice emerged. General Elena Carter, a decorated officer with a reputation for calm, calculated strategy, stood before the Council. Elena was not a member of the Council, but her voice carried weight across the galaxy. She had been trained for moments like this, moments when decisions had to be made quickly, and the consequences of inaction could be catastrophic. Elena had spent years studying the tactics of the galaxy's enemies, preparing for the day when humanity would be tested. And now, that day had come. In a meeting that lasted for hours, Elena calmly laid out her plan for a counterattack. She spoke with a conviction that resonated deeply with everyone present, capturing their attention. "We cannot allow the Zoracs to dictate our fate," Alena began. "Their attack on Leora was not an isolated incident. It is part of a larger plan to destabilize the galaxy. We cannot sit idly by while they destroy everything we've worked for. We have the strength to fight back, but we must do it smartly, not recklessly." Her words hit a nerve with the Council. For too long, humanity had seen itself as the diplomats, the peacemakers. But the Zoracs had shown them a different reality, one where peace was no longer an option. It was a harsh truth, but Alena knew it had to be faced. She continued, outlining a plan that would strike at the heart of the Zoracs' power. Instead of launching an all-out assault, Alena proposed a series of targeted, precise strikes designed to cripple the Zoracs' military infrastructure. The goal was not to destroy everything in sight, but to hit their command centers, their supply lines, and their leadership. The humans had learned from the Zoracs' tactics. Their strength lay in surprise, in speed, and in their ability to destroy without warning. Humanity would use these same principles, but with precision and purpose. The Council listened, each member weighing the potential risks and rewards. The decision was not an easy one, but it became clear that humanity had no choice but to respond. The Zoracs could not be allowed to continue their campaign of destruction unchecked. The Council voted in favor of Alena's plan, and within days, the human fleet was mobilized. As the fleet prepared for battle, Alena took charge of the operation. She knew that the first few hours would be critical. The Zoracs had a reputation for being unpredictable, and any misstep could cost countless lives. The human fleet, though smaller than the massive forces of the Zoracs, was known for its advanced technology and highly trained soldiers. Humanity's strength lay not in sheer numbers, but in their ability to adapt quickly, to fight with purpose, and to make every shot count. Alena spent sleepless nights poring over intelligence reports, making sure every detail was accounted for. The Zoracs, though aggressive, had not yet anticipated a human counterstrike. The element of surprise would be humanity's greatest weapon. As the first wave of human ships launched from their bases, Alena's heart raced. This was no longer a simple defense of Leora. It was a fight for the future of the galaxy. The first strike came without warning. A group of Zoracs warships, moving toward a neighboring colony, found themselves ambushed by the human fleet. The Zoracs had been expecting a different kind of attack, but the humans had outmaneuvered them. In mere minutes, several Zorac ships were disabled, their weapon systems jammed, and their command centers infiltrated by human forces. The Zoracs were thrown into disarray. For the first time, they were on the defensive. But the humans did not stop there. Alena's forces moved quickly, hitting one target after another, each strike calculated to weaken the Zoracs' grip on the galaxy. The galaxy watched in awe as humanity fought back with a precision that many had thought impossible. The humans, once seen as peaceful diplomats, were now becoming the galaxy's most formidable military force. But the Zoracs were not easily defeated. They retaliated swiftly, launching counterattacks against human positions. The battle was far from over, and the Zoracs were as determined as ever. But each move they made only seemed to push them further into a corner, as humanity's resolve grew stronger with every passing hour. In the midst of the chaos, a strange sense of unity began to emerge across the galaxy. The attacks on Leora and the subsequent human response had sparked something in other species, an awakening. Alien civilizations that had once remained neutral or distant now reached out to the humans, offering support, intelligence, and military aid. The galaxy, long divided by its own struggles, was beginning to see the benefits of a united front. The Zoracs, who had once believed they could conquer the galaxy by force alone, were now facing something they had never expected, a galaxy united by a common cause. But even as humanity pushed forward, questions lingered. What was the true goal of the Zoracs? Why had they targeted peaceful colonies like Leora? And what would happen when the Zorax realized that humanity's wrath had only just begun? Alina knew that the answers to these questions were still out of reach, but she was determined to find them. The first wave of humanity's response had been successful, but the real battle was still ahead. With every victory, the Zorax would learn more about humanity's strength, and humanity would learn more about the true nature of their enemies. As the human fleet prepared for the next phase of the operation, Alina stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had become a force to be reckoned with. But as she gazed into the unknown, she knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The Zorax had no idea what they were about to face, and neither did humanity. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. When the Zorax launched their surprise attack on Leora, they had no idea what kind of storm they were about to unleash. The humans, once seen as peaceful diplomats and explorers, had been forced to shift from their long-held belief in diplomacy to the cold, harsh reality of war. For years, they had avoided conflict, focusing instead on building alliances and seeking peaceful solutions. But that was before the Zorax. Now, humanity's wrath had been awakened, and it was spreading through the galaxy like wildfire. The first few strikes by the human fleet had been surgical, calculated, precise, and effective. The Zorax had underestimated the humans, believing them to be weak and unwilling to fight back. But as the humans pushed forward, one target at a time, the galaxy started to notice something different. This wasn't the same peaceful humanity that had once sought understanding through talks and treaties. No, this was a new humanity, one that was willing to go to any lengths to defend their people, their colonies, and their future. General Alina Carter, the leader of the human forces, stood at the helm of the flagship, staring out at the vast expanse of space. Her mind was sharp, her focus unwavering. The war had already claimed so many lives, and though her forces had achieved some successes, she knew the true test was still ahead. The Zorax were not a force to be taken lightly. Their ships were fast and deadly, their tactics unpredictable. But Alina had learned one important lesson in the early days of the conflict: never underestimate the power of human resolve. The Zorax had grown more aggressive with each passing day. They were not content with simply attacking human colonies. They sought to wipe out entire systems, to break the spirit of the human race. And yet, with each assault, they were met with a response they had not expected. The humans were not just defending their homes. They were fighting back with a fury that shook the galaxy to its core. Each strike against the Zorax was a message. Humanity would not go down without a fight. As the war raged on, the humans began to adapt. Their fleet, once small and underprepared, had grown into a formidable force. The Zorax, who had thought they could simply destroy humanity's will to fight, now found themselves facing a relentless enemy. The human ships, sleek and fast, moved with deadly precision, their weapons powerful enough to destroy entire fleets with a single shot. And the humans themselves, from the generals to the soldiers on the front lines, fought with an intensity that the Zorax had never encountered. They fought not just for survival, but for revenge, for the lives lost in the attack on Leora. The turning point came when the humans launched a daring raid on one of the Zorax's most important command ships, the Gorath. The Gorath was the heart of their military operations, a massive warship capable of destroying entire fleets with its advanced weaponry. The Zorax had thought it was invincible, hidden deep within their territory, safe from any threat. But they had underestimated the humans' ability to strike when least expected. General Alina Carter led the attack herself. It was a risky move, but she knew it was the only way to deliver a blow to the heart of the Zorax war machine. The operation was a carefully calculated dance of stealth and precision. The human fleet moved into position, their ships cloaked to avoid detection. The Gorath loomed ahead, its massive size dwarfing the human ships. But Alina's fleet had one advantage: the element of surprise. The battle that followed was fierce and brutal. The Zorax were caught off guard, and the human forces, led by Alina's brilliant tactics, overwhelmed them. The Gorath's defenses were strong, but they were no match for the humans' relentless assault. As the Zorax scrambled to respond, Alina's fleet tore through their defenses, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. The Gorath was crippled, its weapons silenced, and its command structure shattered. The victory was not without cost. Many human ships were damaged, and countless lives were lost in the fight. But it was a symbolic moment. The humans had struck a decisive blow against the Zorax, and the galaxy took notice. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer just a peaceful race. They were a force to be reckoned with. The Zorax had awoken something within humanity, something dark and powerful. And now, the humans would stop at nothing to ensure that they paid the price for their aggression. In the aftermath of the raid, the human fleet did not rest. They pushed forward, attacking Zorax supply lines, military bases, and key positions. The Zorax, once thought to be invincible, were now on the defensive. The human response had been swift and overwhelming, and every victory fueled their resolve. Alina knew that this was only the beginning. There were still many battles to be fought, many enemies to face, but she was confident. Humanity had been tested, and they had passed. The galaxy had underestimated them, but no longer. As the war raged on, something remarkable began to happen. The other species of the galaxy, who had once looked upon humanity with suspicion, now began to see them in a different light. The humans' fury, their determination, and their ability to fight back against impossible odds had earned them the respect of their allies and their enemies alike. The once divided galaxy began to unite in ways it never had before. Formerly neutral species reached out to the humans, offering support, supplies, and soldiers. The Zorax, who had believed that they could conquer the galaxy through fear and violence, now found themselves surrounded by enemies on all sides. Humanity's wrath had united a fractured galaxy, and together they would stand against the Zorax. The Zorax, realizing the tide was turning, made one last desperate push to destroy humanity. They sent their largest fleet yet, a massive armada designed to crush the human forces once and for all. But Alina had anticipated this move. The humans had laid a trap that would leave the Zorax fleet in ruins. As the Zorax advanced, they were met with a wall of human ships, each more determined than the last. The battle that followed was the largest yet, a clash of titans that shook the galaxy to its core. In the end, the Zorax fleet was defeated, and the human forces emerged victorious. The cost had been high. Thousands of lives lost, entire fleets destroyed. But the message had been sent. The galaxy would never again underestimate humanity. The Zorax had awakened a fury in humanity that could not be extinguished, and it had changed the galaxy forever. The war was over, but the legacy of humanity's response would live on. The galaxy had witnessed the wrath of a species pushed to the brink, and it would never forget the lesson it had learned. Humanity was not to be taken lightly. With their enemies vanquished and their allies by their side, humanity stood ready to rebuild, to forge a new future, a future where peace would once again reign, but one in which no one would ever forget the wrath that had been unleashed. The stars had always been humanity's guide, their silent companions in the vastness of space. They were explorers, adventurers, seeking knowledge and understanding beyond the reaches of their home world. For centuries, they had worked tirelessly to forge alliances, establish colonies, and ensure peace across the galaxy. Yet, in the quiet expanse of space, a storm was brewing. The human race had no idea that their peaceful existence was about to be shattered, that the galaxy was on the brink of a massive awakening. It began with a single transmission, a message that would set in motion events no one could have foreseen. The message arrived on a quiet day, unnoticed at first. It was from a distant star system, one that had long been considered uninhabited. The transmission was brief but unmistakably clear. "We are the Uroth. The galaxy has grown too complacent. We are coming." The message was repeated over and over, each time sending a chill down the spine of anyone who heard it. There was no indication of who the Uroth were, or why they had chosen this moment to announce their presence. But the words were enough to spark fear across the galaxy. It was clear. Humanity was not as safe as they had believed. The peaceful galaxy they had worked so hard to protect was about to be upended. Humanity's first instinct was to ignore the message. The Uroth were likely just another alien species, one of many that humanity had encountered in their exploration. But as time passed, reports began to flood in from various star systems. Civilizations that had previously been thriving were suddenly silent, their communications gone dark. Entire colonies, once filled with life, had disappeared. No one knew why or how. It was as though the galaxy had suddenly been swept by a dark, unspoken fear. The Uroth were not simply making threats, they were following through. Their message was more than just a declaration. It was the beginning of a campaign of terror that would shake the galaxy to its core. General Elena Carter stood at the helm of the human fleet, her mind racing. It wasn't just the disappearance of colonies that worried her. It was the strange, unexplainable phenomenon surrounding the Uroth. Their ships were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. They moved through space with unnatural precision, their technology far superior to anything the humans had developed. Worse, they were not interested in diplomacy. They had no interest in alliances or peace. They wanted something more, something dangerous. As humanity's top strategist, Elena knew that this wasn't just a threat to one race or one system. This was a galactic invasion. The first encounter with the Uroth was a nightmare. Human scouts, sent to investigate one of the lost colonies, stumbled upon a fleet of Uroth ships. The moment the human ships entered the system, they were surrounded. The Uroth didn't communicate, didn't issue demands. They simply attacked. Their ships, sleek and dark, unleashed a barrage of weaponry that tore through the human fleet in moments. Despite the humans' best efforts to defend themselves, their weapons were ineffective against the Uroth's advanced shields and devastating firepower. It was a massacre, a one-sided battle that left the human fleet reeling. The message was clear. This was not a fight humanity could win through force alone. The news of the battle spread quickly across human space, sending shockwaves through the population. Fear took hold. The idea of an invasion, of a species so powerful that it could destroy entire fleets with ease, was terrifying. The human race had always prided itself on its ability to adapt, to find solutions in the face of adversity. But this was different. The Uroth were unlike anything they had ever faced before. Their technology, their tactics, and their intentions were a mystery. And the unknown was always the most terrifying of all. In response, the leaders of humanity convened. Representatives from every major colony, every faction, gathered to discuss how to face this new threat. General Carter was among them, her voice steady as she addressed the assembly. "We are not just fighting for our survival," she said. "We are fighting for the future of the galaxy. If we fail, it will not just be humanity at risk. It will be every species, every civilization, every world we have worked so hard to protect." Her words were a rallying cry. The galaxy had been peaceful for so long, but now it was on the brink of war. The Uroth had come, and there was no turning back. As the council deliberated, a plan began to take shape. Humanity would have to adapt quickly. They would have to rely on their ingenuity, their resourcefulness, and their ability to work together in ways they had never done before. The first step was to learn more about the Uroth, to understand their technology, their strategies, and their weaknesses. But the truth was, humanity had no time to waste. The Uroth were already moving through the galaxy, their fleet expanding as they wiped out entire colonies with ruthless efficiency. The first counterstrike came as a surprise to the Uroth. A small but determined human fleet, built with the best technology humanity could muster, attacked one of the Uroth's command ships. It was a desperate move, a bold challenge to the invaders. The humans knew they were outmatched, but they had one advantage: their unpredictability. The battle that followed was intense, a fight to the death in the cold vacuum of space. But despite the overwhelming odds, humanity's forces managed to damage the Uroth command ship, forcing them to retreat. It wasn't a victory, but it was a message. Humanity would not go down without a fight. The news of the attack spread quickly, bringing a glimmer of hope to the galaxy. If the humans could stand up to the Uroth, maybe others would join the fight. And join they did. Alien species, once hesitant to involve themselves in human affairs, now saw the threat for what it was. The Uroth weren't just a human problem. They were a galactic problem. The fragile alliances that had held the galaxy together for centuries began to strengthen, and a new coalition was formed, one that united species in the face of a common enemy. It was a new era for the galaxy, one where unity was the only way forward. But the Uroth were not easily deterred. They had underestimated the resilience of the galaxy, and they would not make the same mistake twice. Their retaliation was swift and brutal. And soon, the galaxy was plunged into an all-out war. The humans, once seen as nothing more than explorers, had now become the leaders of a unified resistance. General Carter and her fleet became the symbol of defiance, the face of humanity's struggle. As the battle raged on, a quiet truth settled in. The galaxy had been forever changed. The Uroth had awakened something within the galaxy, something powerful, something unstoppable, and in doing so, they had unknowingly united the galaxy against. The galaxy had been thrown into chaos. For years, peace had reigned, and humanity had flourished, expanding its reach among the stars. Yet, with the arrival of the Uroth, everything had changed. What started as a mysterious message quickly turned into a full-scale war, one that threatened not just the human race, but the very survival of the galaxy itself. General Elena Carter, the leader of humanity's military forces, now found herself at the center of the storm. As battles raged across distant star systems, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the stakes had never been higher. The Uroth were unlike any enemy humanity had ever faced. Their ships were unlike anything in the human arsenal, sleek and deadly, capable of wiping out entire fleets with terrifying speed. Their technology was far ahead of anything humanity had developed, making direct confrontation nearly impossible. Yet the Uroth's greatest advantage was their relentless strategy. They attacked without warning, never giving their enemies a chance to regroup or retaliate. But General Carter had seen their tactics up close, and she knew one thing for sure: the Uroth had underestimated humanity's resolve. The war had begun in earnest, and every victory seemed to come with a steep price. The Uroth's offensive was brutal. Colonies were burned, cities obliterated, and millions of innocent lives lost. Humanity's response was swift, but the cost of each battle was heavy. The human fleet was outmatched, but their resilience, their unwavering will to protect their homes, kept them fighting. Even when defeat seemed inevitable, they rose to face the enemy with determination. It was this spirit that set them apart, a trait the Uroth had failed to account for. As the war escalated, the galaxy watched in awe. The small, unassuming species that had once been known for their curiosity and diplomacy had transformed into warriors unlike any other. Humanity had not only fought back, but had begun to gain ground. Each victory, no matter how small, brought a glimmer of hope to those watching from the fringes of the galaxy. The alliance between species that had formed in the wake of the Uroth's attack had become a beacon of resistance, and it was led by none other than General Carter, who had become a symbol of unity and strength. Yet, despite their victories, humanity knew the Uroth would not stop. The Uroth were relentless, and every time humanity struck a blow, the Uroth retaliated with even greater force. It was a cycle that seemed impossible to break. But the humans were not deterred. They had learned from their defeats and adapted their strategies. The war was not just about military might. It was about survival, about outthinking and outblasting the enemy. In the heart of the conflict, the Uroth launched their most devastating attack yet, a direct assault on one of humanity's most crucial supply lines. If the Uroth succeeded, it would cripple humanity's ability to continue fighting. General Carter, knowing the importance of the mission, gathered her most trusted commanders for a final assault. They had one chance to stop the Uroth and reclaim their advantage. If they failed, the future of the galaxy would be in jeopardy. The battle that followed was one of the most intense humanity had ever fought. The Uroth, with their overwhelming numbers and superior firepower, seemed unstoppable. But General Carter had a plan, one that relied on the element of surprise. She knew the Uroth would not expect the humans to fight on their terms, and so she led her fleet into the heart of Uroth-controlled space, where their defenses were weakest. It was a dangerous gamble, but it was humanity's only chance. As the two fleets clashed, the sky lit up with the brilliance of explosions, the air filled with the hum of energy weapons, and the screams of ships breaking apart. The Uroth, confident in their superiority, launched wave after wave of attacks, each more brutal than the last. But the human fleet was relentless. They fought not just for survival, but for something greater, for the future of the galaxy. The battle raged on, with both sides taking heavy losses. But the humans, fueled by their desire to protect their homes and their people, pressed on. In the midst of the chaos, General Carter's ship took heavy damage. The bridge was torn apart in the explosion, and she was thrown to the floor, but she refused to stay down. She fought her way through the wreckage, determined to lead her forces to victory. With a bloodied face and a steely resolve, she took command once more, rallying her fleet with a powerful message. We fight for our future, and we will not surrender. It was this rallying cry that ignited something in the hearts of the human soldiers. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future of every living being in the galaxy. The tide of battle began to turn. The Uroth, caught off guard by the intensity of humanity's counterattack, started to falter. Their ships, once unstoppable, now began to break apart under the human assault. And in that moment, General Carter knew that they had a chance. The Uroth were not invincible. They were just another enemy, another challenge to overcome. The battle continued for hours, but as the sun of the distant star system began to rise, humanity's fleet emerged victorious. The Uroth's flagship was destroyed, and with it, their command structure. The human forces had won, but the victory came at a great cost. The human fleet had been decimated, and countless lives had been lost. Yet in that victory, humanity had proven something far more important than their strength. They had proven their resilience. They had shown the galaxy that they could face down any enemy, no matter how powerful, and come out on top. The aftermath of the battle was a time of mourning, but it was also a time of reflection. The war was not over, but humanity had made a statement. They would not be defeated. The Uroth had awakened something in humanity, a fire that burned brighter than ever before. The galaxy now knew that humanity was not just a species to be ignored. They were a force to be reckoned with, and their fight for the future had only just begun. As the human fleet limped back to their homeworlds, battered but unbroken, General Carter stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the stars. She knew that there was still much work to be done, that the war was far from over. But in that moment, she allowed herself a brief moment of relief. The battle for the future had been won, but the war for the galaxy's survival was only just beginning.